What's going on, people? It's your boy Travis, Horror Movies, Uncut Submissions, and Slashers. It is Monday in the evening. You are probably going to be listening to this on Tuesday or after, once this thing is edited and everything. But this is episode number 56 of the Submissions and Slashers podcast. And as you guys can hear, I'm in that kind of low, sultry evening voice mode right now. And the main reason why is because it's been a long ass day and I am tired as hell, but doing what I got to do to give you guys the news that you need to know, of course, about everything going on in the independent film world, especially dealing with your independent genre films, horror films, sci-fi, and the like. So on this episode, we are going to be giving some reviews and interviews, and that's pretty much what we got. So you're going to get all of me giving about 5 minutes worth of interviews for a couple groups of films: 5 Pounds of Pressure, The Island Between the Tides, coming from CineQuest, Ricky Stanicky. Did you see that on Amazon Prime when you got finished watching the Oscars? I know probably a bunch of people did after what John Cena did last night. Hunting Daze, which has made its premiere at South by Southwest. And then, if you've been on our socials this morning, you've seen that we've been posting some clips and portions of interviews that we posted on the website. And we're going to have those 2 interviews in their entirety. And that's an interview with the filmmaker Anik Blanc and the filmmaker Austin Andrews. Now, Anik is the filmmaker behind the film Hunting Daze, which is playing at South by Southwest. And then we got Austin, who is one of the filmmakers, because there's 2 of them. Andrew Holmes is the other, behind the film The Island Between Tides, which made its world premiere as the opening film at CineQuest. So we got those reviews. We're going to jump in. Then we're going to throw those interviews out for you guys to watch. Nice little lovely edition of Submissions and Slashers on episode number 56. Of course, if you want to find us, the best places to go at HMUNCUT. That's where you find us on all the social media outlets. HMUNCUT.com is the website for Horror Movies Uncut. And then, of course, on YouTube and Spotify, find us on Submissions and Slashers. Oh, and by the way, did you notice we back on TikTok? Did you see we was on TikTok? Did they say they came back on TikTok? Did they really come back to TikTok? No, we seen them. They back on TikTok. Yep, we back on there, folks. So, and appreciate the love right off the bat. I don't know that is the weirdest fucking platform ever. You can post 30 YouTube videos in a year that won't get nowhere near the views one video will get in TikTok. It's so fucking strange. But anyway, we're going to come back with reviews for 5 Pounds of Pressure. Don't you go anywhere. Submissions and Slashers, episode number 56. Make sure you hit that like. Make sure you hit a thumbs up. If you're watching this on YouTube, like and subscribe and follow. We'll be right back. So, welcome back, Submissions and Slashers, episode number 56. So we are wrapping up our coverage of the film 5 Pounds of Pressure from Phil Alico. It is a crime thriller that stars Luke Evans and Rory Culkin. And you're going to really dig, I think, a lot of what Rory does in the film. And then for a guy like Luke Evans, he's just kind of trying to play like a stand-up guy. It's a role we've seen in so many films before where it's like a dad coming back from prison. He's trying to reconnect with the son. Think like He Got Game, any of those movies that kind of involve that entire scenario of like the dad coming back from prison, okay? So in this film, the reason why it's kind of hitting some different dynamics is because you do get this story also about Rory. Now, Rory is playing this younger brother of like, kind of like one of the up and coming top, drug dealers, hustlers in the city. And Rory's more of your kind of like what you would expect him to be in this film. Kind of more of your like indie rocker, would rather be living in Nashville playing music than out selling drugs with his brother. Okay. But of course, his brother's got some other plans for him. He wants him to be more involved. And it's kind of messed up. I would love to talk to Phil to figure out like where this came from. But there's just so many moments in the film where they just really mess with the character Mike, which is Rory's character, that allows you to see two sides of this movie that I don't know if necessarily it helped, because at times when you watch a film that feels like you're watching two movies and then they try to string together a bunch of stuff towards the end, while it can work, and yeah, there are a couple moments that you get a aha, more than likely it's like that kind of rushed feeling that a lot of people don't enjoy when they get to an end of the film. And I feel like this one teeters a little bit too much on that side. Now, I was not expecting a couple things with the film, but in the same sense, I will say it's pretty straightforward from what you get from the trailer. It could have been a little bit more grittier. I think they could have done a couple more things with Luke Evans' character. I would have liked to see possibly some interactions with Luke Evans' character and Alex Petfier's character, who plays Rory's older brother. I just think that there's some things that they kind of missed on this, because the stories of the dad coming back to save the day, it similar to what the mom in the film, who's Donna, played by Stephanie, she you do get to that point where you're just like, yeah, like, what are you gonna do after all this time? You're gonna, go take him for ice cream. You know what I'm saying? Like, you get why a single mom would want this kid to have nothing to do with the father. But it's just, what these films are like, man. They're just, they bring in some feel good stuff around a very, very dark and sinister atmosphere, and that's kind of where Rory and their characters all come into play. But it's interesting. There's a couple parts that made me laugh out loud. They deem it as like a romance thriller, but I think it's got a little bit more comedy elements to it. But I will say, if you do enjoy Rory's work, check it out. But you're not gonna really probably be too overall pleased with the film from start to finish. There's just a couple tad bits that you may like. 2.5 out of 5 from us here at Horror Movies Uncut. So that, of course, means if you like action films, give it a chance. If you're into more urban crime thrillers, give it a shout. But I don't know, man. Something about just white dealer drug movies, or like white drug dealer dude movies. Like, I don't know, man. I just never really been a big fan of them. So anyway, 5 Pounds of Pressure, it's out there. We got a chance to see it last week. We've been talking about it for the previous weeks on other episodes as one of the action films to be on the lookout for. Still would say give it a glance if you are looking for something that is not sci-fi or horror related. Okay, so hopping right back in, we're going to start talking about some of the films that are in festivals, and we'll be talking about The Island Between Tides, which we also have the interview coming up right after this with one of the filmmakers. So don't go anywhere, and be right back. All right, welcome back to episode 56 of the Submissions and Slashers podcast. Didn't mention this earlier, but if this is your first time watching or listening to the show, I am Travis Brown, your host, also the owner, editor, and creator of the illustrious family known as Horror Movies Uncut. Make sure to follow us at HMUNCUT. When you do that, you will be following and hearing and seeing interviews about films that are playing in festivals. And we got the opportunity last week to speak with one of the filmmakers from the next film that we're going to be talking about, which is The Island Between Tides. So filmmakers Austin Andrews and also Andrew Holmes, who Andrew will be looking for you up at Panic Fest, sir, because we know you're going to be showing this film up at Panic Fest, and Austin told us you're going to be there. And of course, Austin's not going to be there, but we'll make it work, right? Anyway, so if you guys are familiar with Peter Pan, who's not familiar with Peter Pan, right? Do you know one of the other stories that was created by the creator of Peter Pan, which is J.M. Barrie? And that story is called Mary Rose, and it's kind of like, I like to call it the anti-Peter Pan because it's more involving a young lady, and it's really something that I feel personally is very connected to stories like The Changeling and the Shadow People and any type of doppelganger or story. I feel like the Mary Rose story is kind of like almost an introduction to sci-fi mystery for a lot of people. And what the story of Mary Rose is there's a young lady who, you know, crosses this path into this woods. And when she comes out of the woods, some days have passed, but she only thinks, you know, it's only been a couple minutes. She goes back to the same place when she gets older, goes in, same thing happens. This time, years have passed, and even her children have grown. So she now must reconnect with life and figure things out. So when you hear about the island between the tides, it's about a young woman going over across into this island that only you can get access to during this particular tide. You get that, you know, the same story. She comes out, and it's cool. Like I hate spoiling stuff, man, but this is one really cool thing, and I didn't ask Austin and them about it, but I'm gonna talk to Andrew about this. But there's really one cool thing that they do to show that her time has not changed. And for anyone that has ever been by an ocean, a river, or just, I mean, honestly, I don't even think you need to be by one. You just got to think summertime, and you will 100% understand what this young lady has, why she has it. But I thought it was super unique that they didn't lose that detail when she returns. And so then, of course, she returns later in life. She has a kid. The kid is also kind of seeming like he's not necessarily connecting with the reality. There's a song, a melody that's coming from this island that seems to be calling to her, and it has been calling to her ever since she was a kid. But there's also a lot of parts that are missing. And you got Danielle Logue and some other characters in the film that play her family. Camille Sullivan plays her sister. She does a fantastic job in the film. And then what you just kind of have is this dynamic of a young lady trying to connect the dots, following the breadcrumbs. I mean, this is one of those films that is truly in the realm of like a dark fairy tale. What's going to make it or break it for you is how much you enjoy Paloma. I will personally say the first 5 to 10 seconds of her interaction, I looked at my watch and was like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to deal. She's a little too quirky. You know what I'm saying? But then as you see her character develop more as Lily, and you see that there's some type of disconnect that she has because she has this calling back to the island, then you kind of understand that Paloma really is actually destroying this role and doing a good job of really getting you an understanding of what as Austin and I talked about in the interview, the enchantment, the seduction that's going on, like what's bringing this to it. I hope Jordan Peele sees this. He should be very familiar with this story. There's a lot of things from Us that is very, very close to the Mary Rose story, which is one of the reasons why I bring up like the shadow people and the doppelgangers and things of that nature. It's a smart film because it's a film that doesn't really try to be more than what the original lore was entailing, but they are able to make it more modern. They are able to add homage to the actual play that it's based off of. And it looks amazing. So, and, and we talked in the interview about like, hey, it's like, where did you guys shoot this? And they were just like, yeah, kind of our backyard. So big up to Danny Lavoie. What else has this guy done? Because even still, he killed it back there. He's on Ghost. No, those are the IMD. What is? Oh, okay. Here we are. Oh, he was on Antlers. Okay. Stand television show. Always trying to find out like stuff that you know people behind the scenes that don't get love. That's what we're about here. Is making sure some of these men and women that they behind the scene get also because it's shot very well, and I think that's one of the things that's going to really stand out. So that's why we wanted to make sure. For us, The Island Between the Tides, we gave this 3 out of 5. It was the opening film at Cinequest. Didn't get a chance to read any of the other reviews as of yet, but just based off of some of the early ratings I'm seeing here, it seems like it's pretty good so far. So I'm expecting this film to get some good legs. Hopefully, it won't be in the circuits too long so that it'll get sent out to you guys. I didn't get a chance. It's another thing. I didn't get a chance to talk to Austin to see if anyone's bought the film yet. I'm assuming with it getting like really that big opening night film, more than likely, Cinequest is it's a really good festival. So once I see Andrew, I'll ask him, I'll dig in and be like, all right, man, who bought it? Where y'all going, fam? What outlet y'all gonna be on? But I can totally see this being on Shudder, you know. And I love Shudder. Shudder's probably gonna hate me for saying this, but there's so many films that Shudder has as a Shudder original that I saw as the original, you know. So, but still, it's great that, we still have Netflix, Shudder, Hulu, all these outlets buying these films. Like, it's super important. Okay. So, once again, we're going to jump back out. When we come back, we're going to jump right into the interview with that filmmaker, Austin Andrew, about The Island Between Tides. Then we'll come back, give some quick thoughts on Ricky Stanicky. Then we'll talk about Hunting Daze, and then we will wrap up the show with the interview on Hunting Daze and talk about what the hell is streaming next week. But that's all we gonna do after that. We just gonna talk about what the hell is streaming next week. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Get you guys to sit back and enjoy this great interview with the filmmaker from The Island Between Tides, one of the filmmakers. So don't go anywhere. Hit all the likes and all the subscribes and all those buttons of everything. All right, Travis Brown, Horror Movies Uncut, Submissions and Slashers. I am joined by one half of the team. And here's the funny thing, Austin. So, like, I'm a like a pro wrestling fan. So when I see names like Austin Andrews, you know what I mean, and Andrew Holmes, like I'm like, you guys are like the Freebirds, like a wrestling tag team, Rock and Roll Express, you know. And it's funny because we're gonna be talking about your film, The Island Between Tides. You guys got a big premiere coming up. It's gonna be the opening night film for CineQuest, man. It's so exciting. But one thing that I would love to ask you to just kind of just break every single little bit of ice that we already haven't broken so far. If you guys were to come up with a tag team wrestling name based off of this film, what would it be? Let's
Ooh,
go.
I love
Right
this
into
question.
it,
I
baby.
love it. I love it.
Let's
And based on
go.
the film, that adds another layer of complexity to it because, like, the film, so much of the film is musical. It's musical. It's
Yes.
musical more than it's actually vocabulary too. So, what
Right.
I wonder is if there's a way that we can have something that's actually like sung rather
Yeah.
than said, and have
Yeah.
that be the tag team name, or
Right.
if it's something that
See,
just
like,
for us.
it's crazy because like I think a couple things, right? So I think like characters like Raven, right? And how
Yeah,
he's like his brood of group of people. But I feel like it would be a bunch of like women instead, you know what I mean? And they would
yeah,
probably
yeah.
come out with like flutes or something, you know what I'm saying? And like they would serenade the crowd, and rest in peace, Bray Wyatt. Like I feel like he's kind of like that type of character that will be represented in a film like The Island Between Tides, because he, like, the big thing he did is he kind of enchanted the entire crowd with his intro. You know what I mean? I feel like you guys would have something like that going on.
Enchantment. I love that because I
Yeah,
think that's the vibe too. Get someone under a spell,
for
weave kind of
sure.
a hypnotic thing, and have that be the lead.
So for people that are familiar with this enchanting tale that's kind of based off of this very well-known play. Now, of course, Peter Pan is the play that's really what this playwright's known for. But you guys have stumbled upon this kind of like story that, like, when you look at it from a play, it doesn't necessarily seem like it's outright a supernatural type of thing. But what
Mm.
you guys are able to do is take it into this extra fantasy realm, and you kind of add a little bit of things that we've seen in like classic British cinema and all types of stuff to bring The Island Between Tides together. And I'm just curious right off the bat, how did this lay in your guys' lap? And what was kind of the initial thoughts on how we're going to get this project started?
Yeah, I love that question. And there's so many different kind of facets to this. But looking at the play, like it still boggles my mind that here we are with what almost acts as sort of a thematic sequel to Peter Pan. And
Mm-hmm.
it's never been adapted as a feature film before.
Yeah.
And it's darker, it's edgier, it's
Right.
it's it's more melancholy, but
Yep.
it's in a way this more mature reworking of these themes from Peter Pan.
Mm-hmm.
And to be able to be the first to adapt it, I know we won't be the last. Not for lack of trying. Alfred Hitchcock
Yeah,
famously
man.
spent
Like
a year
the
trying to get this
fucking
made.
OG tried to do it and
Yeah,
he
yeah,
got
yeah,
shut
yeah,
down.
yeah.
You know, could you
Absolutely.
imagine? Could you imagine Alfred Hitchcock being alive right now, being able to make like whatever films he wants to right now?
Oh
Like,
man, I
is
know. And all the films of his that may be like this one,
Mhm.
were denied. But I think
Right.
there's such a large shadow that this property casts, both being this sequel of sorts to one of the most beloved plays of all time, but
Mhm.
also this object of obsession for one of the greatest filmmakers of all time. And so and Andy and I knew that in our adaptation of it, we would need to be able to sort of take a step back and find the things that resonate with us and find sort of a bit of a different angle in. And so rather than just do a straight adaptation, we've looked at something that's sort of as much adaptation as it is sequel in a
Uh-huh.
way. The main character from the original is just a secondary character in ours.
Right, right, right.
In a way, sort of an original piece that takes some of these themes that are so tantalizing from the play and puts those front and center, but with a new story to support it, one that can be set in our backyard in northern British Columbia, a world that we know so well.
Yeah, and that's where you guys shot most of the film, of course, was in that area, which is just like so unfair to have Hollywood technically behind you. You know what I mean? But it's and I have people. I'm here in the Midwest in the States in Missouri, and I always have people say, "Why are there so many filmmakers from Canada?" I'm like, you just might want to visit it sometimes. I'm like, there's a lot you can do, especially when it comes to genre films, and I think one of the great things about having your guys' film as like the opening night movie for a festival that touches so many different genres like CineQuest, how excited are you guys to actually sit there in the audience with the crowd, be able to get some questions asked, and really enjoy the experience of your film being released to the audience in this way, as they like to say, as it's meant to be, right on the screen in front of an audience.
Oh, just beyond excited. I mean, this has been such a long path to screens. In a way, it goes back right to the very beginning of my collaboration with Andy. We've been working together for 12 years. This is our second film in that time.
Mm-hmm.
And this is, it to be able to let the rest of the world in now, one screening at a time, and start to share what we've been up to all this time. Making a film, whether it's, in a collaboration like ours, or, as an individual director, whatever it is, it can be a really lonely experience too, because, you're constantly fighting people who are saying no. That's almost cold answer when making an independent film. So it is so much easier for people to say no, whether it's casting, financing, location scouting, whatever it is, the various gatekeepers, and pushing through the 20 no's to get to the one yes. Yeah. And there's 100 yeses that have led to this film being made and now finished and premiering at CineQuest, of course, being one yes. Yes. But for every one of those yeses, there's 20 no's. And so, it does require a bit of, resilience and stamina, and to be able to now premiere it tomorrow and be able to just be there with the energy of a crowd, being able to share this thing that's such a big personal part of all of us. For sure. It's going to be very meaningful.
I love that you use words like meaningful, because one of the things that I think speaks volumes about this movie that's going to touch a lot of people is the family dynamic in here. Touching base on this cast, Paloma, I mean, what can you say? She's just awesome in here. But having someone like Donnell, who this guy, I don't think there is a role like ever that I've ever seen this man in that is just wrong. Like he hits it nail on the head all the time. Talk about like family, how that plays into this film, and then also how that dynamic is presented when you see what's going on with Jared and Lily and like all these, because there's just so much. And for the people that aren't familiar with the story, they may not know about what happens with this island and all things. But I think what they'll get to see even from the trailer is that clearly there's a strong family element in here, because there's people, children are missing, and daughters and fathers are involved. So just give me a little bit about how that kind of plays into the creation, and how it also was on the set, and how everything came together.
Yeah. Well, that idea of family is at the center of everything. I mean, I consider all of my favorite movies and the films that sort of led me to wanting to actually be a filmmaker myself, many of which this sort of tips its hat to. There's always not just the family unit at the center, but ideas around, as it is in this one, what does it take to break down what should be our strongest bonds? What does what are those bonds made of? And in the case of this film, where we have our main character who's missing for 25 years and the world moves on without her, and then she returns as though no time has passed for her, but the rest of the world has aged 25 years around her. What does that do to her family? Is her family still her family even after they've grieved and let go as best they can?
Right.
Her son is now older than she is. It poses so many interesting, this dynamic is so, kind of the singular, I guess, or at least something where, it allows us to explore in a very heightened manner, some really interesting dynamics around, ideas of belongingness and what really does constitute a family,
Yeah.
and shifting, kind of shifting dynamics, and that's right at the center of it. Like, yes, this is. It's a genre film for sure. We're in that sort of supernatural mystery,
Hmm.
supernatural thriller zone, sort of horror adjacent. I adore horror. I'm a huge horror fan.
Yeah.
And I look at this as, I'm big on kind of looking at more broad
Hey
categorizations of
man,
horror.
you got that underground film behind you on that wall that like true horror fans really enjoyed Summer of '84 when it came out. Like
Yeah, I edited that film.
that's the
So
movie that even before it got on Shutter, people were like, "Yo man, have you seen Summer of '84 yet?" So yeah, so we know we know we see the credentials, fam. We see them.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know what I
yeah, yeah.
mean?
That's my world through and through. And I think, I look at like a, a, a lot of the movies that I consider scariest aren't ones that would necessarily even be considered horror. And
Right.
I think
Right.
that's something that I really look at with The Island Between Tides as well too.
Mhm.
And with Andy and I, a big part of our goal was to get under people's skin and to be able
Yes.
to have them look at, maybe the people who are closest to them in their lives and ask themselves, like, do I really know that person as well as I think I do?
For
It's
sure.
these sort of questions that are so fascinating, tantalizing, and to be able to explore that stuff with this cast, like,
Yeah.
this is we would have workshops and rehearsals going into production as much time as we could get with our actors, where we would show up at the Performing Arts Theater in Prince Rupert and just get them on stage and just as much talk as sort of riff and
Hmm.
find these dynamics between the characters. And yeah, it was such a treat, being able to, especially with Andy and I being newer directors. This is our second feature that we've directed, to
Right.
be able to learn from actors of this caliber,
Oh yeah.
is everything.
This has been fantastic, Austin. I would love to talk to you so much about this film, but I'm definitely going to let you go so that you can get on to some more interviews and really get to promoting the film. I'm actually going to be heading up to Panic Fest, and I believe you guys might be playing up there as well in
We
Kansas
sure
City.
are.
Yep, that's right up the road from me. So I'll be for sure spreading the knowledge of, hey, you better be getting some tickets to see this one. Hey, this
Appreciate it,
film I
Travis. Thank
think
you.
is so well done. That's one of the greatest things that I can give as a compliment to it. One thing that I would like to say though, with so much that's involving with the film and so much that people are going to be able to take, what is it that you guys hope that people take from The Island Between Tides when they get finished watching the film, especially when you guys are leaving that theater and you're getting ready for those question and answer segments down there at CineQuest?
Yeah, I think so much of it are these ideas that the film poses around time. Sort of what it is it to kind of exist outside time, and what legacy is it that we all actually leave behind, and that's one of the real messages of the film is this idea that we can't take our time for granted. Every relationship, every moment we spend with loved ones, this is really essential stuff. And to see, as with Lily, how that time gets robbed from her.
Right.
I hope that we can reflect back on that a little bit too, and see just how we can make the most of what we're given ourselves in terms of precious moments.
That's awesome, man. I feel like you guys would have a finishing move as a tag team connection called the Time Robber. That would be
Oh, I
some
like that.
combination of an off the rope, suplex, pile driver type of mix. So, I'd be sitting there for the 1, 2, 3 count, man. Austin, thanks so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Give Andy my best too. You guys enjoy the festival, enjoy some sunny weather and everything that comes with it. And like I said, man, I can't wait for people to get a chance to see this. And even if I have the time, I'm going to try to pop in because I want to see this so much more on a bigger screen than what I'm watching on. So it's so great to be able to get this time for you, brother. So I really appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Travis.
Not
And
a problem.
we'll see you.
All right, people, welcome back. Make sure to follow us on Spotify and YouTube. We are on pretty much every single one of your podcast outlets. So just make sure to search all over the place, submissions and slashers. All right. So we are just wrapping up that lovely interview. Once again, thanks, Austin. Thanks to Staley and Taylor, all the girls over at the PR firm, handling the business, getting us in contact with these amazing filmmakers and people behind the scenes of these awesome films. And like I said, we are looking forward to you guys seeing The Island Between Tides. Okay, so a lot of people were watching the Oscars last night. I was not. I don't watch the Oscars. I never watched the Oscars. I'm usually watching a film, catching up on something. It's weird. For the last easily 5 to 6 years, every Sunday night of an Oscars, I am always trying to catch up on something. And the funniest thing is I got kind of caught in a whirlwind of watching this old BBC show. What is the name of that show? Hold on for a second. I think I might still have it up. Roland Dahl was the name of it. So he had this show called Horror, Late Night Horror, that like no one can find any episodes. Or there's just like one episode. And you can see the intro on YouTube. And it's one of the best things. But this dude was like wrote like children's books. He was like an Air Force guy. But he was also like a therapist, philosopher, like a paranormal investigator, I think. And so he came up with this show. Yeah, he did a lot of things. He has some stuff to do with Matilda. Okay, so yeah, so he had this show called Way Out, which preceded The Twilight Zone, but it did not last that long. And then, like I said, there was this show called Late Night Horror that had some of his stories in there. And supposedly it was like really good, so good that they had to cancel it because it was like freaking people out. And I want to see this show so bad. And if anybody has any copies of this or whatever, please let me know because I'm looking for these. Okay? Horror television is my life. And then Tales of the Unexpected. That's what it is. So yeah, so I found myself in a little like rabbit hole watching some old episodes of Tales of the Unexpected. They're great. They do remind me of Twilight Zone and stuff like that, but I do see where, you know, it's really not anything sci-fi related at all. It's really more human element, stupid, dumb, and evil stuff that we do. And I think that leads perfectly into a film like Ricky Stenicki that is available on Amazon. You've seen us talk about this on Horror Movies Uncut. People are always like, why are you always talking about films like this on HMU? And it's because we've had a relationship with Amazon and Amazon Prime because they've been at the forefront of dark comedies and sci-fi and horror films actually for easily the last 7 to 10 years. I actually have a whole catalog of films in the other room that have been given specifically, thinking like Bingo Hells and stuff like that from the Amazon Prime, Blumhouse Presents, all that stuff. So people forget like these guys are all kind of connected to each other. And so I wasn't surprised when Peter Farrelly's new movie, comedy, definitely dark comedy, was being thrown our way. And I wasn't surprised that it also is kind of more looked at as a bigger film because of the people that are in it. Zac Efron, John Cena. But what I was surprised by was how much love it got in things like the Super Bowl, and it was all over just different ads and stuff. And Jermaine Fowler, you know, we just talked about him and Sting, right? So he's all over the place, another film with him. But yeah, man, it's got some some great people. There's also some legends in this. And I was not going to watch it with any expectations, but I made sure that I watched it before the weekend was over because I wanted to at least say, hey, you know, it just, I don't know what it is. It's so crazy to see a guy like Zac Efron like do something like Iron Claw, which, you know, not of course going to be winning, didn't win any Oscars or anything like that, but people really talked about how great the performance he and the other guys gave as the Von Erich brothers, how touching it was and stuff like that. But I mean, it's kind of like, not going to win like wrestling movies. Like, did the wrestler win an Oscar? Got, I think it got very close. It's a good trivia question. Did the wrestler win an Oscar? Best Actor, 2009, and Best Supporting Actress. Okay. Didn't get Best Film, but it had the best people in the film. So you're not really going to find a movie about wrestlers really winning, an Oscar, but it's just funny to see something a little bit more serious. And then here we are back at like The Neighbors, type movie, which is kind of what we knew Zach from, the Baywatch and all that stuff. The premise is funny. Having a made up friend that has been the person getting you out of trouble. The cast is like it's everybody you would probably want to see or have seen in some show on HBO, Cinemax, or Showtime, or a combination of them all within the last decade. And it's got John Cena, who is becoming almost like the anti-Rock, I want to say. Like, Rock is definitely, what did Rock do? Like, straight to action, Walking Tall type films, then into the Disney world. Doing pretty good there. Where John Cena's kind of like, of course, action too, but he's kind of going darker. He's like Jim Carrey, you know what I mean? So, as expected, just a whole bunch of parts just laugh out loud. For sure, something that if I was at a friend's house and it was on, don't know if I could watch it again. There's some parts where I'm like, man, that part was really, really a lot of fun, but not necessarily memorable. Like, I think about a movie that I didn't necessarily like when I first watched it, but now I can watch it anytime it's on because there's so many parts that are memorable. And even there was a person on Instagram today that posted a story that had the part, and I'm talking about Step Brothers, and it's the part when Riley and Will Ferrell or like they they're about to get the job or whatever. Like, we about to fuck this place up. Those parts are memorable. You know what I'm saying? Frank the Tank's memorable. I don't know if there's anything really that comes out of a movie like this that's memorable. I mean, this is kind of like, there's a lot of these films that are like this. Like, think of the Eddie Murphy Christmas movie. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can think of the film, you could probably see it in your head, probably remember a little bit of what it's about, but it's not gonna be anything as memorable as like a line from National Lampoons or even Homeboy from, Office Party movie. Like, that even has memorable stuff. So these guys, they tried. And like I said, there's some funny parts in there, and I might even watch it again if I was at somebody's place and they had it on. I would pay attention to see if it still hits on certain jokes. But there was a lot of things that I was like, yeah, it's really good writing, which you expect from this group. But in the same sense, I was like, kind of rounding out to be just another one of those movies. All right, so that's a little long on the Ricky Stenicki part, and that's primarily because of all the other shit I was looking up beforehand. So we're gonna hop out of this, hop back in, Hunting Daze, give our thoughts on that film, and then give you what the hell is streaming next week, and then wrapping up the show, finishing it all the way through with that interview, Anik Blanc. We will be back next week or next episode with our normal stuff of the weird news of last week and big action thriller to see. But this week, since we got those interviews and stuff, and we're going to be primarily focusing on these reviews, and since some of these films are getting that run right now, CineQuest and South by Southwest, wanted to make sure we got this stuff out. So don't go anywhere. We're going to come back, give you guys our thoughts on the film Hunting Daze, and then you guys will be watching that exclusive interview with the filmmaker themselves, Miss Anik Blanc. Don't say the C because she French. Okay, I'll be right back. Submissions and slashers. All right, people. South by Southwest is in full effect. Big shout out to my homeboy Eric Havens. They're down there in the midst with their little light blue badges on and stuff, taking a bunch of photos, seeing them some South by Southwest movies. I thought I was going to get a chance to see a couple more, but we'll see. There are a couple more things that I know were passed my way that I'm still waiting on a couple updates for, but so far, not necessarily upset with what I've been given. Really happy to talk about a film that we got a chance to speak with the filmmaker last week about also. And this film is called Hunting Daze. Anybody else write a review? Yes. Okay. All right. So this film follows a young lady by the name of Nina. And Nina is a lady of the evening, what way you might want it to be, okay? But clearly she and her pimp or pimp's assistant pimp, if you the pimp, you the little pimp, broke pimp, whatever, whoever this dude is, they're not getting along. So she ends up getting stranded to the point where she has to call one of her buddies, and the buddy that she's calling is also where her and her associate just came from doing their, like, stripper thing. It's a bachelor party. Dudes are out there in the woods getting ready to do some hunting. The last thing that they want is someone invading their space while they're trying to be, men, right? But of course, anytime you see these situations going on, normally the guys are going to be inebriated, probably acting very weird and doing a lot of stuff that no woman usually wants to be around. Okay? But that's not what really Hunting Daze is about. Hunting Daze is more about how Nina intertwines with these guys and kind of becomes a group with them. And not only does she kind of become one of the bunch, she actually becomes almost like the voice of reason once a terrible accident happens that starts to show their kind of toxic masculinity come to the forefront, where she becomes what we all aspire to be, which is the one that takes fucking command and takes charge of the situation. The thing that's crazy is, while this film could just be a straight up, human resource fucking film, there's this weird kind of dreamlike fantasy realm that gets brought into the movie that starts to kind of make not only Nina and the rest of the guys, but even this strange visitor that joins their mix to start kind of questioning what's kind of going on through this. So that's when the film starts to kind of become a second chapter, if you may, on how all these events that have already happened and what the relationships have now turned into between Nina and these guys. Also, now dealing with the fact that they really don't know what the hell is going on. Okay. Now, one thing that I will say is there's going to be moments when you, the viewer, are probably not really going to know what the hell is going on. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, because one of the things that happens is everyone in the film shines in their own way. So you really, really get a chance to jump into what Nina has to deal with, and then also see how these guys, almost like one by one, become little of themselves. So it's going to be a film that I think will do very, very well in the climate that we have right now. You can tell by the interview that I had with Anik that she's a very strong-minded, like wanting to make sure she's in your face with topics and making sure she's not shying away from who she is and what she wants to present out on films. And I'm sorry, isn't that what we're always asking for? So Hunting Daze, we are giving this 3 out of 5. Well, all the performances by everyone included was great. There are a couple parts in the film where we are sitting there being like, all right, like, I don't know if necessarily this is where it's going to take us. And I'm not going to lie, I personally was not too happy with how the film ended. I would have liked to see it. But but one of the things that I will say is a film like Hunting Daze, man, I feel like this film should have had, it could be a film. Let me rephrase this so that I don't spoil anything. I like films like this that can lead into multiple endings, thoughts of multiple endings. And that's what I was expecting. So, still looking forward to really a lot more of what Anik can do. Trying to see if she has any other upcoming projects. Yeah, seems like the reviews so far are doing pretty good for Hunting Daze. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that I think people are going to enjoy. What's going to make or break them is just going to be how invested they get in what this kind of change is in the film. Okay. But let's talk to the filmmaker, Anik Blanc. We got a chance to speak with her last week, right before the premiere at South by Southwest. So let's go ahead and shoot over to that review. Before we jump into that review, tell you guys what the hell streaming next week. We got the old ones on VOD. Late Night with the Devil. Everybody's ready to see that. It's going to be streaming in certain places. I think pretty much most of your streaming outlets will have it by Friday. There will be a limited theater release, so it is possible that they might push some of the streaming back. Probably in regards to like independent horror, that's probably, outside of that, that and Immaculate are probably the two more larger films people want to see. And Immaculate's also, I think, was that Boston Underground Film Festival. They're going to get that as their opening night film, which is great. That'll be in theaters most places on Friday next week. I'm looking forward to seeing Immaculate. I should be getting that. Where my movie at, Neon? And then I know a movie for sure I'll be seeing in theaters next week is the Ghostbusters Frozen Empire film. Later this week, like I said, tomorrow, I can just go back. Just to give you guys a reminder. Yeah. You know, we had Imaginary and all that stuff that got released. And I do have some thoughts on Imaginary. I saw it. I'll talk about that in the next episode. Night Shift and The Piper. Yeah, and that's really about it. So you're going to be looking at more stuff that came out that's going to be coming out next week. Okay, so we're going to jump into that interview with Anik. Don't you guys, well, actually, that's going to be the end of the show. So always make sure once you get finished watching that interview, you hit that like, you hit that subscribe, and we'll see you next time on Submissions and Slashers. This is episode number 56. I'm Travis, Horror Movies Uncut. Follow us at HMUNCUT. We'll be back on the next one. Appreciate you guys. All right, folks, Travis Brown, Submissions and Slashers, Horror Movies Uncut. I am joined today by Miss Anik Blanc. Do not say the C, because she is French, okay? We don't say the C. And we are talking about a film that is making a premiere this on the 9th, I believe, down here at South by Southwest, and that is for the film Hunting Daze. Now, I must say, first and foremost, right off the bat, this is probably going to be, in regards to genre films, the most all over the board genre film you might see at this entire festival. So, Anik, it really makes me start right off the bat asking you about your childhood, your upbringing, where you're kind of from, and then also, is there any films in particular like that kind of serve as like a muse for a movie like Hunting Daze for you?
Whoa, that's a big question. Well, I think life served more as a muse for this movie. I mean, of course, in the aesthetic of it all, and I'm a big movie fan. I was inspired by many horror film, being it The Shining, being it any cabin fever movie you can think of was of course part of the aesthetic there.
Okay. Are you from Canada, or are you from where are you from?
My parents are from France, and I was born in Canada.
Okay.
And basically, but more the story, the will to do this film was just more me seeing how we navigate this life while blinding ourselves to whatever is going on, and continuing to party and to live our life like that, and to want to kind of challenge that way of doing, and showing in a cathartic way, if we continue to live this party without noticing what we're doing or what is going on next to us, where we could end up, how we could end up. So that, I think that was one of the strong thing that kind of made me want to do this movie. And also I want to see a strong woman face a bunch of toxic masculinity and win over them. And that was something I needed to see, because I am proud about the Me Too movement and about all the contestation movements right now, the Black Lives Matters movement, all those movements. I think they are important, but I wanted also to show strong character there that would kind of burn down this world, you know.
That's right. Yeah. And so it leads to a great question about our star, Nina Nahima Rishi. How did you know that she was the person that could pull off this role? Was it something about her that you've seen before, or was it just during auditions that you were like, okay, for the role, because this role is so important for Hunting Daze? How did you know that that's my person right there? That's my Nina.
It's so funny you asked that because we actually didn't know her agent, because she had done a few films before where she was more in the victim position, right?
Mhm.
And in a tomboy position, never playing with sensuality or being that strong. And her agent proposed to her 5 times, I think, and we said no, we're really looking for something else. And we saw everybody else in Montreal. We did a very big audition process. I also wanted at first to work with a non-actor, but for such an important role, I think it was a little bit too much of a stretch, or I didn't need the right person for that. And then at the end, I was like, we didn't see her. And I called, I know somebody she knows, and I was like, do you think she'd be interested in doing something like that? And she was like, that's all she want to do. She's tired to be the victim. She wants to be the one shaking the world. And then we saw her in the audition, and she had changed her appearance because she's more tomboy, and she had put those big loops earrings and those short shorts and all that. And she now had long hair because in her last movie she had shaved hair, right? So it was just completely different. And she started to do the audition, and we were so dumb not even to see her before. And it was kind of clear at that moment, because she has that strength and that anger, but also she's so captivating, and you kind of want to be her friend. So she had this really two sides to her that was really important for the character.
Yeah, and honestly, I think it also shows how much she's able to play off of the guys in the group, because they all it's like they all could be one character in sometimes, because I feel like that's just how we men are at times. We all could just be one character. So talk about like on the set when you're with this group. And there's so many moments that I think people are going to really enjoy for the film when they see the interaction with her and the guys. Like, were they able to kind of improvise a little bit of some of the stuff? Or did you kind of have, hey, I really want it to be this particular way? How was the vibe when you guys were shooting, especially all those great scenes that you guys had with everybody together?
That was crazy. They're all very long scenes. I think there's like 29 scenes in this movie, right? It's like all the scenes are 10 minutes long. They're all intense.
Yeah.
There is no it was always a joke at the start of the day. Everybody would come and say, another little relaxed day, because it was always something burning, some water, some actors crying, some blood, some like animals. There was every day. And to direct 10-minute scenes, they kind of needed often, because they were so intense, to do the whole scene, right?
Yeah.
And I would just watch them go, and couldn't write notes. So after 2 minutes, I had forgotten half of my notes. So then the next time I'm trying to get the rest of my notes, but they kind of owned the character. So all the takes were still good, but I was trying to add just a little bit, but it was very, very tough. I was, 1 year I had a baby, so I still had mom brain.
You got mom brain, yeah, for sure.
So I was trying to direct 7 actors and them going everywhere. So the only way I could do it was to only look at the monitor, so that to not notice about what the other one were doing, because they were living the scenes, right? All around. I had to concentrate on what I see and go. And they were really good. They were also very gentlemen with one another. When we left little room to improvisation.
Okay.
But we didn't want it, because if 7 actors improvise, then it becomes a nightmare.
Yeah, yeah.
But when one would find the right joke to add, they would let him have the moment, and the next scene, the other guy would let him
That's
have.
great.
So they were really a good pack, but they became really, they became kind of like in the movie. They really became close.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Hunting Daze is a film that down in South by Southwest, I think it's going to be like one of the perfect places for a film like this to be seen, because it has always been a festival for creation and for creativity and for kind of whimsical, fantasy-driven types of films. So when we are introduced to Nambi Nyai and we start to kind of see what's going on with the rest of the film, it's Hunting Daze really has a lot of different layers to this movie, where it's almost like you're watching a play in a sense. Tell me, what type of challenges did you run into yourself when you were trying to piece all this together? Because even for a person that watches as many films as we do, I know I'm going to have to watch this movie again, because there's just so much I know I missed the first couple times. So like any challenges in regards to the writing that you really ran into. And I really appreciate your time. This has been fantastic. I'm really going to kind of lead you with this question and one more to wrap up. But is there any challenges like that were really hitting you when you were trying to piece together how to really wrap up this film with all the different layers that it entailed?
I think the biggest challenge was myself, because sometimes, right, you stick to an idea. And for me, it was important that in the second act, nothing happened. And they were kind of, because it was about inertia, right, for me also, this movie. Those guys face so much and they do nothing. And then I think I fought with this idea for like 5 years, but everybody was telling me nothing happened in the second act, nothing happened in the second act. And then at some point I was like, I just watched a movie where I watched too many movies where nothing happened in the second act. I was like, yeah, if you don't know how bad it's going to go, it can be boring. Mm-hmm. And then that's the moment I accepted to like really shake up my second act of the film, the 30 minutes in the middle. And then it all fell through, like all the little problem. I was like, I knew I wanted to use them to face nature. So I was often thinking, how can I use nature? We were supposed to shoot in a lake. We couldn't. Mm-hmm. It was too expensive. So I was like, maybe the water can come from the sky. So I kind of tried to always just keep open to like the challenges, except that one challenge that I fought against for too long. But then when I let that go, it went really well.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Annika, what is one thing you would love for people to take away from Hunting Daze after they see the film, Annika?
I think I wanted to stick with them and to kind of reveal itself to them slowly. As you say, there's many layers. It's kind of a fable. Could you say fable?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Yes.
Fable.
Yep.
And like, because I think they can look like the bad guys, but like I think they're also close to us. And like, I think that's what the film wants you to realize. Are you sometimes too much letting yourself lead by a group, or are you sometimes the bad leader of a group? How can we as a society do better, and keep our individuality? Because I really do think that most humans, when they're alone, are fantastic and are full of empathy and like can really change the world. But when we become a mass, that's when we stop thinking sometimes, or we kind of let the others, we say they're gonna fix it. But we need to fix it, all of us, So I think that's what I want to stick.
That's right. Let's fix it. And we got Annick Blanc to make sure we're getting it done the right way. Lady, thank you so much. I love the voice. I love the passion. I love the spirit behind you as a person as well. I can't wait to see more coming from you. So please keep us posted on anything coming your way. I really, really hope people get a good appreciation from the film. We'll have our review up later for you to see it as well. Thank you so much for your time, Annick. We look forward to speaking to you again in the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.